What's up, viewers, subscribers, and agents alike? It's your boy, Light Luciferian Prince, coming at you once again with an upload. Still doing my thing, still rocking and rolling. Now, the title of this video is going to be, according to the purpose, the reasons why taxation is voluntary. I don't have a problem explaining this subject because, like I said before, it's not anti-tax, it's not anti-protest, not anti-government. It's simply actually using their own laws that have been hidden from you against them. So what people don't understand is that the simple fact of the matter is that with regards to taxation, with regards to your process of taxation, and on all these other videos of taxation, you need to make sure that you do your due diligence to stay on top of the knowledge that corresponds with taxation. What happens is, I get a lot of complaints, and I'm going to put that word in quotation marks, because what kills me is I think that people who have had obstructions in their cases, or whatever case may be, have not executed it correctly. Maybe it could be one or two things. One, maybe it's the universe's way of telling you that you're doing something wrong. Or two, maybe it's the reason that you don't have the competency in how to execute it, or you don't have the knowledge, or haven't done the real research in order to execute it properly. That's your fault. That has nothing to do with what you go see on one channel, because obviously certain people who do display knowledge about taxation are actually good-hearted, sincere individuals. Now, I can't speak for the 90% who are misleading you on this information. And secondly, when people say, well, when we turn this stuff in, all they do is just turn around and give it back to us. They send it back. Okay. All you have to do is arm yourself correctly with the right knowledge first, and then when you face these issues, execute this too. So it's one of those situations where it's like you have to be proactive. Don't worry about documentation, because while you're sitting there doing the documentation, while you're sitting here looking at the video, you're not doing research on what it is. That's your fault. That's for nobody else's fault. You can't blame somebody else for your inability or your inactivity to do something. That's your fault. Simple. Don't blame the process, blame the person, which is you. Freedom is not a spectator sport. Trust me. You're not going to get free just sitting here watching YouTube videos. You'll become informed or misinformed or disinformed, but you need to actually do something about your own freedom. Don't sit here and leave comments in channel sections talking about what you're not doing. It's not our fault. I don't have tax problems. I don't pay taxes. I didn't pay taxes in years and don't have to. I did mine correctly. Like I said before, these people don't harass me at all. I know what I'm doing. So you need to analyze yourself, look in the mirror, and go figure out what the situation is with you. Don't blame nobody else. I think that I've seen it in people's emails. I'm like, what's wrong with your situation? And maybe it's because, again, you're in your inability to do due diligence and research, study first, a lot, and touch on the basis of what you're actually dealing with. Like before, somebody asked me prior, names aside, about the process of the section and the hardware, what I call it, about how to eliminate taxes, whatever the case may be. It's not eliminating taxes, so to speak, not eliminating it on the wholesale. In a personal venue, it's eliminating taxes, but legally, extra legally, and documentarily, according to the Internal Revenue Code. So why would you ask me a question that you already should have had the answer to when I sent it to you? See, a lot of people's emails don't get answered because they ask me questions they already had an answer to. If you contacted me and you already got the hardware, you already got the information, you don't need to ask me anything, because it's time for you to sit down, you to read, compare the paperwork that you probably have had before from other people, put the two together. Why don't you study a Black Star Dictionary? Why don't you study court citations? Why don't you also study Treasury decisions and see if what they gave you corresponds with your paperwork? It's time for you to do your work. Stop contacting me. Like I said before, it's 24 hours in a day. New people want more knowledge. New people want more research. New people want more insight. So this channel is dedicated to those people, like I said before. Some people I contact, they actually have some sort of competency about what they do. Fantastic. Hats off, y'all. Love y'all. And the new people, I always emphasize research and study. That's why I tell people, garnering the information from me allows you to have the hard copy of the information. So you don't have to call me unless you have a question, particularly about something that you may have tried or either wish to consider embark upon trying. That's the simplest way to teach people, So people who have also, like I said before in the past, who said they've been on this path for years, but have had an incorrect UCC1 form, you haven't been doing your shit right. But that's your problem. It's not the world's problem. It's not this, instance's problem. It's definitely not that. It's your problem. And maybe it's because, like I said before, maybe it's because at the time when knowledge is supposed to be revealed to you, it will be. That's a proven fact. That's not conjecture. That's fact. However, without further ado, I wish to go into a lot more basis. This is over 2,000 pages. So let me zoom in right quick because it's very fine print. It's very fine print. There we go. Yeah, right in your face. It's very fine print. Now, here it is. Let me read this before I proceed. The accuracy, truthfulness, and authority of this document is of utmost importance. Should you find any errors, especially anything that is illegal, I strongly encourage you to promptly bring them to my attention so that they may be expeditiously fixed. But this is just a disclaimer. The contact information, as I said before, is in my video description. Most of the time, I tell people all the time, you won't really have any problem as long as you stick to the script. I always tell people to stick to the script. And in this video, I'm also going to tell you people who are agents, without this new disclaimer that I'm about to tell you also. For those of you who work for the IRS, the legal profession, the accounting profession, tax preparation profession, or the government who thinks that what I'm getting ready to say, rather than the IRS, is a great hoax, I challenge you to find even one inaccurate fact, claim, or statement in what I'm getting ready to present. Research documentations that I'm about to present also. And if you can't, then I encourage you to join a tax-free organization like the rest of us and come clean. As I talk about like later on in this video, I also want people to understand that you have to take into consideration is that if you really wish to consent with the IRS, it's acquiescence. If you wish to acquiesce to the IRS, it's your choice. It's your choice. That's perfectly fine. Don't email me. Don't contact me. Don't even make an attempt to even try to even leave a comment. It is what it is. It's your choice. As I said before, freedom is a mature concept. I tell people, always question authority, always challenge jurisdiction. Serious. Serious. This is the truth. This is what was quoted by the so-called founding father, not my founding father, because he don't look like me, but the so-called founding father's government. It says, never trust your government. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. A revolution is needed every 20 years just to keep government honest. And since we have noticed that he made this hypocritical statement, so the same person who owned slaves tells you not to trust government. and not to mention had kids by him too. But let's proceed. This is a large document, so bear with me. It's very large. And like I said before, let me see. There's so much to touch bases on. And I also want people to know that the definition that I'm getting ready to use, first and foremost, about this, or when it talks about America, so to speak, not United States, just America. We agree on using that name because it's opposed to people who have different morals, ideologies, irrespective of what you mean. You're not going to send a piece of documentation to the IRS talking about a Mexican. They're going to understand what you're saying. They operate under a private venue. A public venue. You operate under a private one. Keep it to yourself. Sometimes it's best to hold water. America means a nation of sovereign states, united, lowercase, under the Constitution established by we the people. But the Constitution means what constitutes the body of government, not a piece of paper. Remember, a piece of paper is a fiction. Sovereignty rests with the people and not a piece of paper, so-called the government. Agents are the servants of the people. Never forget that. Citizen means a sovereign of one of the preamble states of the Union of America, possessor of unalienable rights guaranteed by your creator and secured by law. However, we know that off the muscle that this is the truth, that we know that by the practice of law, the only rights you can guarantee are the ones you guarantee to yourself, not to law. Because once you acquiesce in contract with law, you might as well consider yourself a citizen, not a sovereign. Citizen of the United States, defined in Title 8 United States Code, Section 1401, in the context of federal statutes, means a person born or naturalized in the federal United States, federal zone, and a subject citizen of Congress. Typically, the United States government allows nationals or state nationals who are persons born outside the federal zone and inside the 50 states to declare that they are U.S. citizens so that they can volunteer to become completely subject to the jurisdiction of the federal courts and become the proper subjects of the Internal Revenue Code. But technically, they are not U.S. citizens. In the context of federal statutes as legally defined, U.S. citizens are possessors of statutory civil rights and privileges granted by Congress and stipulated by statute, code, or regulation found mostly in 48 United States Code, subsection 1421B. In the context of the Constitution, the rulings of the United States Supreme Court, a national of the United States, born in any one of the states of the Union and not on federal territory, and defined under Title 8 United States Code, subsection 1101, Section A, Section 22, Section B. Employee, as defined in 26 United States Code, Section 3401, so Section C, and 26 Code of Federal Regulation, subsection 31.3401, Section C, an elected or appointed official of the United States government. What did we just see before we proceed? We just seen a simplistic definition of an American, simple, of America as contextual, and what a citizen is. That definition just expanded because it turned into something totally significantly different. It was not what you think it is. It is not what it's reported to be. And it damn sure doesn't have anything to do with the natural side of what life is. Let's look at federal zone. Means in its territorial sense, all places and waters, continental or insular, subject to the sovereign jurisdiction of the United States. Whoa! Under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution of the United States of America. This area is also commonly but mistakenly called United States. A more correct way to refer to this area is the federal United States to avoid confusion over the terminology, which according to their constitution is no more than 10 miles square. Only people who are really responsible for paying taxation are people who reside in the D.C. Corporation private venue or federal employees. Since you're not one, we'll go into that later. Those people who have the hardware, you know what I'm saying? You already know what I'm talking about. If you have the hardware, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not speaking crazy. Gross income means income that fits the description of gross income defined in 26 United States Code, Section 61, and which derives from taxable sources. Clearly defined in Title 26 United States Code 861 and Title 26 United States Code Section 862, and the implementing regulation found in Code of Federal Regulation, Section 1.86-8, Section F. Most natural persons, notice the word, natural person, do not make any kind of income that fits the description of gross income as defined here. Before a revenue source can be considered gross income, it must first be income, as constitutionally defined. One, which means according to the United States Supreme Court, that it must be corporate profit, connected with foreign or interstate commerce. This comes from Title 26, Code of Federal Regulations, Section 1.861-8F, agrees with by this showing that only income from foreign estate and foreign sales corporations, which is FSCs, and domestic international sales corporations, or DISCs, is considered gross income from sources within the federal United States. This consisted with two other important constitutional constraints on federal taxing power. One, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3, which limits the power to tax in the foreign commerce and interstate commerce. And two, Article 1 Section 9, Clause 4, Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3 of the Constitution, which required the apportionment of direct taxes to the states because Title 26 of Internal Revenue Code is not yet enacted into positive law. But for some reason, every time you go to a bank and you sign the back of a card, you obligate yourself to Title 26. The rabbit hole gets deeper. As it stands, only prima facie evidence of law. That's all it exists for, just on the surface. The real and only law in regards to federal taxation is found mainly in the statutes at large and the Constitution. If you examine the history of the definition of gross income, you will find that it was first defined and used by the Revenue Act of 1918, and that salaries of elected and appointed officers of the United States government receipt of federal salary were the only natural persons who received gross income. Gross income. For such case, this is the result of a voluntary and implied employment agreement between the United States government and its officers and appointees, which is what I just previously said earlier. Over the years since then, the definition of gross income and the tax laws have been obfuscated to fool the average American, the average, because as you can see, my t-shirt is the average American flag. The average American into thinking that his pay is gross income, when in fact it actually isn't. So we'll proceed to include what income really is. The term income means profit and gain served from capital, as ruled by the Supreme Court in the Eisner versus Macomber, Volume 252, United States Supreme Court, Volume 189, year 1920. Income cannot be defined by legislation or by the Internal Revenue Code. It is instead defined by the Constitution to mean corporate profit derived from a corporation involved in foreign or interstate commerce. Natural or biological persons cannot earn income, as defined by the Constitution, but they can volunteer to call the money they earn from wages income. What did it just say? You can volunteer to call it income if they want to pay the voluntary tax called income tax, which is your choice. Trust me, it is your decision. It is your choice. It's perfectly fine. Law, that which is laid down, ordained, or established. A rule or method according to which phenomenon or acts exist to follow each other. Law, in its generic sense, is a body of rules of action or conduct prescribed by the sovereign within the jurisdiction and having binding legal force. United States Fidelity and Guarantee Corporation versus Gunther. That which must be obeyed and followed by citizens subject to sanctions or legal consequences is a law. Law is a solemn expression of the will of the supreme power, which is the ultimate sovereign of the state. California Civil Code, Section 22, the law of a state is to be found in statutory and constitutional enactments as interpreted by courts and, in the absence of statute of law, in rulings of courts. Dowers Estate versus Zabel, 9 Michigan Appellate Court, volume on page 176, volume 156, Northwest Reporter, 2nd edition, 3437. In the United States in the United States of America, the people both collectively and individually are the sovereigns according to the Supreme Court. Chisholm, Executives versus Georgia. From the differences existing between the feudal sovereignties and government founded on compacts, it necessarily follows that their respective prerogatives must differ. Sovereignty is the right to govern. A nation or a state sovereign is the person or persons in whom that resides. In Europe, the sovereignty is generally ascribed to the prince. Here it rests with the people. There, the sovereign actually administers the government here. Never in a single instance are governors or the agents of the people, and as most stand in the same relation to their sovereign, in which regents of Europe stand to their sovereigns. Their princes have personal powers, dignities, and preeminences. Our rulers have none but the official, nor do they partake in the sovereignty otherwise in any capacity than as private citizens. Yickwell versus Hopkins, volume 118, United States Supreme Court, 356, year 1886. So what I'm going to tell people is this, before I proceed to, also extend this video into a more extensive round, because like I said, I'm reading from a tome that's 2,195 pages. There's no way I want to sit here and read 2,195 pages without a bottle of water. We're not even going to play them games. I do these in segments because it's very important for people to know segmentally. At least you get precepts upon precepts, line upon line. A little bit here, a little bit there. Some people, you can't just drop too much truth on at once. Motherfuckers will go crazy. They don't understand the concept of freedom, and so when they get more of a sense of independency about what freedom really is, then they lose their fucking mind. Is that my responsibility? No. It is your responsibility to take it easy when it comes to this. You can overexhaust yourself, you can overwhelm yourself, and you could also drive yourself into an early dementia. So, when you realize that your preconceived education doesn't coincide with the so-called state ideology or the governmental ideology, then you're bound to drizzle. So, let's finish off on this note. Therefore, the people are the authors of the law. As the sovereigns of supreme power of the state, the law constitutes essentially a binding written legal agreement or contract among the sovereigns to conduct their affairs according to some standard of conduct. The sovereign is never the proper subject or object of most laws, unless he violates the contract and thereby injures the equal rights of other fellow sovereigns, which is what the definition of a crime really is. Instead, the servants of the sovereign people working in government are the main object and subject of most civil laws, and laws are enacted mainly with the purpose to delegate and confine the authority of public servants so that they do not injure or undermine the rights of the true sovereigns, the people. Furthermore, only states which have been enacted into positive law are considered binding upon all persons within the jurisdiction of law. The legislative notes under Title 1 United States Code, Section 204, indicate that the Internal Revenue Code is not positive law, and therefore it can only be described as special law or private international law, which is contractual law, which also goes back to the fundamental purpose of my basis of my channel, which is the UCC1. Applying to specific persons, Subtitle A of the Internal Revenue Code, in fact, is limited mainly to those engaged in the trade or business and those who work for the United States government as trustees. The Internal Revenue Code cannot be described either as law or positive law unless and until 1. The Internal Revenue Code is first enacted into positive law by a majority of the representatives of the sovereign people, which of course we know isn't going to happen. This provides evidence that they voluntarily consented to enforcement actions being required to implement the law. Without such consent, no enforcement actions may be attempted. Because according to the Declaration of Independence, which has no legal conclusive effect, it's just a declaration, all just powers of government derive their consent of the governed, which we know is a main principle implied and instilled also in the Constitution. So we're not stupid to that. Number 2, regulations must be written by the Treasury for the enforcement provisions of the enacted positive law, and these regulations must be published in the Federal Register. This puts the public on notice of the enforcement actions that will be attempted against them in enforcing the law, as required by the Fifth Amendment Due Process Clause. Number 3, the enforcement regulations are then incorporated into the Code of Federal Regulations, Title 26. Number 4, delegation of authority orders are written for all enforcement agents within the Internal Revenue Service, authorizing them to conduct enforcement actions. And lastly, number 5, the enforcement agents must be designated as enforcement agents by receiving a Black Enforcement Pocket Commission and being specially trained and commissioned as public trust employees. Unless and until all the above have occurred, the Revenue Code, according to Title 1, United States Code, Section 204, we'll say that one more time. Title 1, United States Code, Section 204, not in light Luciferian prince, not the Lord himself, no, hell no. According to their law, can be described as law and can only be described as prima facie evidence of law, which is simply presumptive evidence of law. That means that it may be rebutted since presumption causes prejudice, and prejudice is indeed anathema to any legal proceeding and violates due process of law. Then the Internal Revenue Code is not admissible as evidence of law, which means that it does not furnish any evidence that the people ever consented to its enforcement against them. Consequently, it's unenforceable until it becomes positive law. It can only be described as a code or a statute, but not as law. We'll leave off on that note. I'll continue here at another point because Like I said before, some people got to watch this video again. It's understandable. I get it. Shit happens. You got to take it easy sometimes, but you can't overwhelm. Gonna bust your brain. People also want this information. Select people. You will indeed go through a series of questions, which of course will be recorded by email, which I will leave inside of my video description. Because yes, this is a very touchy subject. And yes, there are some questionable people in the world. And yes, I have talked to some questionable people over the past few days, over the past few weeks. And yes, if you haven't received a response from me, you're a questionable person. I have no problem admitting that to the public. Straight up. I have no problem doing that. So, real talk. If you want this super hardware on tax information, please leave it in the subject line. Indeed, I will, like I said, you will be screened. You will be asked questions. You will be probed. And yes, I will email you from a VPN. Not to mention, it is understandable if you want this information for your own study, your perusing, your research. Again, people, when I send you books via PDF, you have to also understand you need to learn some computer literacy. Print the motherfucker on double-sided pages. If you can't do it, please take it put it on a USB drive. Save it to your computer. Make sure you actually can send it to something viable that is actually functionable with this modern day interface, not that old school USB. Something up to date that you can take to a Kinko's or an Office Depot or a UPS store or something outside of yourself, because I know for a fact that this is 2,000 some pages. Your at-home printer can't handle this. The only people's printer who can handle this are agents, and we know what type of printer machine you have. But you're going to have to learn how to begin to invest in your research and your help, and also to understand that at least you have something hard copy. You know what I'm saying? At least you got something viable, something hardcore. You know, a lot of people don't want to do that. You know, they just want to sit there and rely on technology, and the next thing you know, when it comes time to show and prove, they can't. You got to learn how to be proactive. Again, this channel right here is not for cowards. That is a proven fact. If you are just a spectator, just have a seat. You know, there's plenty of spectators on this channel. I'm pretty sure that. But at the same token, what I'm saying also is this. This segment and this segment alone is for the serious-minded only. Like I said, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. Straight up. You know what I'm saying? Because there's volumes and volumes and volumes and volumes of this stuff that is irrefutable, undeniable proof. That has come from reliable, credible sources, very credible sources, who have once actually went up with the B system. That's a proven fact. But what people don't really understand is, like I said before, education. Just like when you went to school, it wasn't about the teacher talking to you. It was about you got to do some fucking homework too. And you got graded on your homework. So since you got graded on your homework, then those became what? Grades. Those became the things that you basically were awarded for. But in an adult life concept of freedom, you will at least be awarded for something you viably are doing on your own volition. And there's nothing like an award like that. Stay tuned. There's more to come. And agents, you already know what I told you. I don't even have to discuss it. It is what it is. It is written in stone. Period. Oh yeah. And by the way, I also demonetized my channel. So bye-bye, YouTube. Peace. Love y'all. Take care. Y'all be safe. Agents can't stop the truth, man. Can't stop it. Do something about it. Stop playing with me. Y'all take care. Hit me up in the email section. Serious inquiries only. Bullshitters, no, please don't do it. I will not respond, and you will get mad at me because I don't have time. Take care and peace. Love y'all.